He's here to speak about the services that ACT Health offer and what you can do if you're experiencing stress or mental health concerns in terms of getting help from them. So please welcome Ramsay.
Thank you all very much, and thank you to Forum Australia for having us here today. I'm going to speak a little bit more broadly than the services that ACT Health offer, because there is actually... Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm told that was a little bit soft. So, as I was saying, I'm going to talk a little bit more broadly than the services that are on offer from ACT Health. There are a lot of services out there, increasingly more services as mental health and well-being and mental illness and suicide prevention and self-harm prevention become more mainstream issues. I'm going to try and keep this very brief. I've been given 5 minutes, and I'm going to try and stick to that. And I'm going to start with how a person might deal with the more serious class of crisis and sort of work my way down in terms of seriousness, so that we cover the most important things first in case I get wound up before I finish. So a certain amount of stress can be a good thing. It can be motivating. If you think about perhaps you're coming up to a job interview or an exam, that certain amount of stress and apprehension that you have can actually help you. It can help you to study harder, it can help you to prepare better, and it can help you to perform well in the situation. But as our previous speakers have said, too much stress can definitely be a bad thing. Sometimes when stress gets to such a point, it can trigger an episode of an existing mental illness. And I think it's worth saying that mental illness is actually very common despite what people think. The latest research we have suggests that something over 45% of all people in Australia will experience an episode of mental illness at some point in their life. So this is something that can happen to all of us. And it's a fact that when we become very stressed, that this can exacerbate an existing mental illness. Sometimes stress can also unfortunately lead people to a point where they're thinking about self-harm or they're thinking about suicide. And it's very important that we acknowledge that this happens. This happens to a lot of people, and it is something that can be dealt with and helped very effectively. So I want to start with, how do we deal with a situation where someone is having serious thoughts of self-harm or serious thoughts of suicide, and they or one of their loved ones or a friend or a colleague may have serious concerns for their safety. In this type of situation, it's very important when someone's life is at risk that people feel that they can call the 000 emergency number and ask for the help of the ambulance or the police service. Now, some people hold a view that this is not the thing to do, but this is very much not the case. In just the same way that if my life was at risk because I have fallen off my motorbike and broken my leg, if my life is at risk because I've had an incredibly stressful day, having thoughts of suicide, it's really important that people know that they can access the emergency services for this reason. And I want to reassure everyone that the police service and the ambulance service deal with these sorts of situations every single day. It's nothing unusual for them, and they're very happy for you to call and to get their assistance. I think it's worth saying that both the police service in the ACT and the ambulance service have access to advice and support from mental health clinicians 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So they're not acting on their own, and they do have backup from Mental Health ACT. A concern that people often have is if they call 000 and they seek the assistance of the police for a loved one who is experiencing a mental health crisis, that they will perhaps be arrested or they will be taken to the police station. I'd like to let people know that that's definitely not the case. In a situation where the police or the ambulance service are dealing with a mental health crisis or a suicidal crisis or a self-harm crisis, all they do is they assist the person to get to hospital where they can get the assessment and the treatment that they require. And I also want to reassure people that if you're in doubt, if you're not sure whether the situation warrants calling the emergency services, it's better to call and speak to them rather than not call and have something bad happen. If you call the police and you talk to them about your situation and they feel they're not the best service to assist in that situation, they will transfer you to the service that is best placed to help you, and they are happy to do that, and there is no problem in doing that. So, if in doubt, do call. Reach out for help. It's tremendously important. So, moving down to the next, category of troubles. If someone is in a mental health crisis or a suicidal or self-harm related crisis, but it's not immediately life-threatening, there is definitely help at hand, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In the ACT, we have the ACT Health Mental Health Crisis and Assessment Team, and they can be reached. I won't read out the numbers because no one's taking notes, but I will say I've got a little box there of Let's Talk for Suicide Prevention cards, and they have a number for the Mental Health Crisis Service as well as a number of other services, and I'd encourage everyone to take one of those cards at the end of the evening. There's a similar service in New South Wales for their mental health service, and people can also present to the emergency department of Calvary Hospital or the Canberra Hospital at any time of the day or night and be assessed by a mental health clinician. So that will be either a psychologist, a mental health social worker, a mental health nurse, or a psychiatrist. So when that happens, and these are the same clinicians that will see someone that the police or the ambulance service bring in the case that they are the ones that are contacted. After an assessment, a plan will be developed. Sometimes that means people being admitted to hospital for treatment. Often, however, it doesn't. It means that people will be supported and treated in the community. If that is what happens, in the ACT, the Mental Health Crisis Assessment and Treatment Team will provide follow-up and assistance until a regular service can be organised. And it's really important for people to know also that even if someone has been to hospital and has been discharged with a follow-up service, if the situation changes or deteriorates or people have a question, they can always contact the Mental Health Crisis Service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Stepping down again to a less serious sort of a situation, if someone is feeling that they're very stressed, or they're getting stressed easily, or they're getting stressed a lot of the time, or they're feeling low, or they're feeling anxious, but it's not at the point where you really call it a crisis. There are an awful lot of options. For children and adolescents, there's the Kids Helpline and also the Headspace service. And for services that are available to everyone, there's Beyond Blue. They have a telephone advice number and also a really good website. And similar to them, Lifeline also have a 24-hour telephone advice service and a good website. And another thing that people often don't think of when they're thinking about mental health or stress or anxiety is seeing their GP. In addition to being able to treat your physical health concerns, GPs are also equipped to deal with most common mental illnesses. They can diagnose in most cases. They can often initiate medication treatment if that's what's required, and they can construct a mental health plan and refer people on to the services of a psychologist or a counsellor or a mental health social worker to get the help that they need. As the other speakers have said, it's much better to act early rather than wait until the crisis point. As I've said, The emergency services and the mental health crisis team are always there, and people should certainly access those services. But it's far better to try and nip the problem in the bud, and getting in and seeing a GP for a mental health checkup is a great idea. Or just calling Beyond Blue or Lifeline to have a chat about things and try and get problems dealt with before they become a crisis is also an excellent idea. I'm going to finish in just a second, but because I'm a social worker and I have to look at the social determinants of mental illness and that sort of thing, I just wanted to mention quickly that some of the most common causes of stress are things like relationship difficulties that Mary's spoken about, relationships or issues with raising children, issues around money, issues around work, and issues around drug and alcohol use. In Canberra, we have really good services for all of these concerns. For relationship issues, often there are elders in the community or religious leaders or organisations like Relationships Australia that can help out in these situations. For parenting issues, there are organisations like Mary Mead or Bernardo's that can be of assistance. If people are having problems at work, most big organisations have an employee assistance program, and often unions are able to assist with industrial issues. For people that are experiencing drug and alcohol problems, ACT Health has an alcohol and drug service, and we also have a community drug and alcohol service called Directions here. So I'd really encourage people to have a look at the services that are available for any issues that may be troubling them, and deal with those issues early so that it doesn't get to the boiling point that we're talking about tonight. Just finally, before I finish, I'd like to just acknowledge that in Australia we have a significant number of deaths due to suicide. It's a problem that we're all trying to address, but it is something that needs a lot more work. But I thought I would just tell you that just recently the ACT government, in acknowledgement of the fact that people, lives are being lost to suicide, have initiated a service with Relationships Australia, the Coronial Counselling Service, to assist people who have lost someone to suicide or to some other traumatic circumstance that has necessitated an investigation by the coroner. And we hope that will be of assistance to people going through the very difficult process of working through the loss of a loved one to suicide. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of your meal and the rest of the evening.
Thank you very much, Graham. And just from working in the radio for the ABC, we speak to those organisations that Graham referred to a lot. There's a plethora of people here in Canberra, especially we are very well serviced. And the people I speak to, sometimes it's it's just an overwhelming thing that they don't know where to start. There are all these services, but who's the right one to go to? Who should I see first? Those sorts of questions that people when they're in crisis seem to ask. And my experience is that people in these organisations would invariably say, just start with someone, reach out to someone, and if they can't help you the most, then they will do what they can and they will direct you to someone who can help more. And that's, I think, a valuable message as well. There's in one way you could say there's no excuse for not getting help, but I think we probably all know it's a lot more complicated than that for people who are going through crisis. That ends the part of the evening with our 4 speakers, so thank you all very much for your very in-depth and varied presentations. all very grateful, I'm sure. I'm going to open up the floor now essentially to a Q&A session where anyone can ask a question of one of the speakers or four of them at the same time.